My dear friend, if your own children turned their backs on you tomorrow, what would you do? Because at 72 years old, I was standing in a cold hallway, holding a plastic bag with my clothes in it, while my daughter signed papers to put me somewhere I never agreed to go. A nursing home. Not because I was sick, not because I was confused, but because I trusted the wrong people. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I am 72 years old. I worked 46 years as a school cafeteria manager in a small Ohio town called Brookvale. I raised 2 children alone after their father died. And I made one mistake that almost cost me everything. Let me ask you something before I go on. If it was you, would you trust your own child with your retirement money? Be honest. Because I did. And that decision changed my life forever. Before I continue, my dear friend, if you enjoy real emotional stories like this, stories that teach lessons and expose hard truths, please subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. And tell me in the comments which part of the United States you are watching from. I want to know who is here with me. Now listen carefully, because I do not want you to repeat my mistake. The day they took me to the nursing home, my daughter Madison would not look me in the eye. She kept smiling at the nurse, signing forms too quickly, as if she had rehearsed this moment. My son Caleb was not there. He said he was busy. Busy while his mother was being erased from her own life. They told me it was temporary, just for observation, just until paperwork cleared. That was the first lie. As the elevator doors closed, Madison whispered, "Mom, this is for your own good." If it was for my own good, my dear friend, why did my hands shake like I was being buried alive? Standing there, I remembered the smell of our old house on Maple Ridge Road. Fresh coffee, warm bread, the sound of my children running through the hallway. I remembered skipping meals so they could eat more, working double shifts so they could have college, putting every dollar into a retirement account I never touched. That money, that pension, that house, that was the real reason. Let me ask you again. If it was you, would you have seen it coming? Because I did not. I believed family meant safety. I believed love meant loyalty. I believed sacrifice would be remembered. I was wrong. As they wheeled me into that small gray room, I noticed something that made my heart drop. The paperwork on the desk already had my signature. A signature I never signed. And that was the moment I realized this was not about care. It was about control. My dear friend, what would you do if you discovered your own child forged your name? My dear friend, imagine waking up in a place where everything smells like disinfectant, where the walls are a pale gray that presses down on you like a weight, and the only familiar face you see is a nurse who barely glances at you. That was my reality on the second day in Brookville Heights nursing home. My room was small, the bed too narrow, the sheets scratchy. I felt like a stranger in my own life. It was then that I noticed the stack of papers on the side table. Bills, statements, and legal forms. I remembered signing nothing. And yet there it was, my signature, forged clear as day. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. Someone I trusted had done this. Someone I loved. Someone who called me Mom. Madison. I knew I had to understand why. I needed answers. So I started asking questions quietly, talking to the nurses, observing who came and went, listening to whispered conversations. That's when I heard it. Caleb had been coaxed by Madison. She promised him shares in the house, promised him money he didn't deserve but wanted anyway. He had followed her lead. My own son. My heart ached at the betrayal. But it wasn't just that. It went deeper. Madison had convinced a lawyer to help her, saying it was just temporary, that Mom would thank her later. And they had laughed over coffee at my expense, thinking I'd never notice. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, replaying every Christmas, every birthday, every dinner. And I realized something terrifying. My love and sacrifice had been used as weapons against me. I began writing down everything, every date, every call, every meeting. I made notes in the margins of my mind. I promised myself that this story would not end with me crushed, that the people who had stolen from me, who had betrayed me, would see that strength doesn't come from anger alone, but from quiet, deliberate action. And then something unexpected happened. A nurse, young and kind, whispered to me while changing my sheets, "You don't belong here. You deserve better. Some of us know what's really happening." My heart leapt. My plan was forming. Not revenge born of rage, but a strategy. A careful, unstoppable plan. But before I could act, Madison appeared in the doorway, smiling, holding another set of papers. "Mom, you need to sign this too. Just a little adjustment. It's nothing serious." I looked into her eyes and saw something chilling. That smile was not love. It was triumph. And that, my dear friend, is when I realized the fight had already begun. But what I didn't yet know was just how far Madison would go, and how many people had been quietly watching and waiting for me to fail. If it was you, would you have the courage to stand up against your own family when everyone else thought you were powerless? My dear friend, imagine finding out that the very people you trusted most had been planning against you long before you even realized. That's exactly what happened to me. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind where the clouds press against the windows and everything feels heavy. I sat by the small window in my room, staring at the wet streets of Brookville, trying to make sense of how my own family could betray me. I had been asking questions quietly, observing, listening. And one evening, while the halls were silent, I overheard Madison talking on the phone. Her voice was soft, but the words were sharp as knives. "I've got everything in place. She won't even know until it's too late. The lawyer has her signature ready. The accounts will transfer, and by next week the house is mine," she whispered. My heart stopped. She was planning to take it all. My savings, my house, my life's work, all for herself. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that Caleb had been giving her information. He had been the one to tell her which bills I paid, how much I had saved, even when I kept extra money tucked away for emergencies. I clenched my fists, my own son. I had raised him, loved him, and he had chosen greed over me. I needed proof, something solid, something that could not be argued. So I began sneaking through the paperwork that Madison left behind. Every ledger, every receipt, every email. I wrote notes in tiny handwriting on scraps of paper, hiding them under my mattress. And then I found it. A hidden document filed in the lawyer's office that Madison had forgotten to lock. It was a draft of the final will. My house, my savings, my precious memories, all lined up to go to her. I felt a mix of rage and sorrow. Rage at their betrayal. Sorrow at the realization that the people I had sacrificed everything for could turn on me so easily. But then a spark of determination lit inside me. This wasn't the end, not by a long shot. They may have tried to trap me, but I had something they didn't: knowledge. And knowledge, my dear friend, can be a weapon more powerful than anger. That night I whispered to the empty room, "I will not let you take this from me, not without a fight. And when the time comes, I will make sure everyone sees the truth." It was then I realized something even more shocking. Madison had been hiding another secret, one that could destroy her plans completely if I played my cards right. But I didn't yet know what it was, only that it existed. If it were you, my friend, what would you do in my place? Would you confront them immediately, or would you wait, watch, and prepare? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and comment where you are watching from. I want to know who is standing with me as I take back what is rightfully mine. The secret I discovered did not come from shouting. It did not come from fighting. It came from being quiet. There was a new social worker assigned to Brookville Heights. Her name was Lorna Hayes. Uncommon name, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who noticed things others ignored. She spoke to me differently. She sat down. She listened. One afternoon, while pretending to adjust my blanket, she leaned close and whispered, "Mrs. Whitmore, do you know why you were really placed here?" I looked at her and asked you the same question I ask now. If it was you, would you want to know the truth, even if it broke your heart? She slid a thin file across my table. Inside were notes, dates, phone calls. Madison had told the state I was mentally unstable. Let that sink in, my dear friend. My own daughter told the government her mother could not think for herself. She claimed I forgot things, that I was confused, that I was a danger to my finances. And here is the part that made my hands go cold. The lawyer who helped her had already been reported once before. For elder exploitation. Madison knew exactly what she was doing. I felt sick, not weak, not confused, sick from betrayal. That night I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question I want you to answer honestly. If your child destroyed your reputation just to steal from you, would you still protect them? Because that was my battle. The next morning, I did something Madison never expected. I agreed. When she came in smiling, holding coffee like a caring daughter, I nodded politely. I signed nothing, but I played along. I told her, "You were right, honey. Maybe I do need help." Her shoulders relaxed. Her guard dropped. Greedy people always make the same mistake. They rush when they think they've won. From that day on, Madison talked too much. She bragged to nurses. She whispered to staff. She laughed on the phone in the hallway. And Lorna, she listened. One afternoon, Lorna looked me straight in the eye and said, If you cooperate, I can help you, but you must trust me. My dear friend, trust is dangerous, but silence is power. I agreed. We started documenting everything. Audio logs, witness statements, timeline after timeline. And then Lorna revealed the final piece. Madison had already taken money. Quietly, illegally. Transfers from my retirement account. Small enough not to alert banks. Large enough to build a lie. That was the moment I stopped crying. Because now, this was no longer about family. This was a crime. Let me ask you something serious. If it was you, would you still stay quiet? My dear friend, have you ever noticed how people reveal their true selves when they believe no one is watching? Because that is exactly what Madison did. Once she believed I was broken, compliant, and harmless, she stopped pretending. She spoke freely. She moved faster. She got careless. And that, my dear friend, was her biggest mistake. Every visit, she brought new papers. Not to help me. To erase me. She would sit beside my bed, crossing her legs, speaking softly like a saint. Mom, this is just to make things easier. Mom, you don't need to worry about money anymore. Mom, I'm protecting you. Let me ask you something. If it was you, would you notice how her hands never shook, but yours did? Because I noticed. Behind that calm voice was hunger. And hunger makes people sloppy. Lorna arranged for a quiet evaluation. A real one. No lies. No planted statements. A licensed psychologist. Independent. Thorough. I answered every question. I remembered dates. Names. Amounts. Events. When it ended, the doctor looked at me and said, "Mrs. Whitmore, you are fully competent." Those words felt like oxygen. But we did not celebrate. Not yet. Because proof without timing is useless. So I waited. Madison thought she was in control. She thought the house was already hers. She even started bringing furniture catalogs into my room. Can you imagine that? Picking curtains for a home you stole. One afternoon, I heard her on the phone again. Laughing. Once the final transfer clears, she's done. They'll keep her here, and I'll sell the house by spring. My dear friend, if someone said that about you, would you still stay calm? Because I did. Every word was recorded. Every visit logged. Every lie documented. Then came the moment that changed everything. Madison tried to rush the process. She submitted a petition to make herself my permanent guardian. Permanent. That single word told us everything. Lorna looked at me and said, "This is where we stop waiting." The state opened an investigation. Quietly. No warnings. No signs. Madison walked into her own trap smiling. And she had no idea that her bank records, phone calls, and forged documents were already being reviewed by people who did not care that she was my daughter. Let me ask you one last question before this chapter ends. If it was you, would you still call this family? My dear friend, there is a moment when a person realizes the ground beneath them is no longer solid. That moment came for Madison on a Tuesday morning. She arrived at the nursing home dressed too carefully, hair perfect, makeup flawless, smiling like always, but something had changed. She was nervous. She spoke too fast. She kept checking her phone. "If it was you, would you have noticed?" "Because I did." She pulled me aside and whispered, "Mom, has anyone been asking you questions?" That was the first crack. I looked at her calmly and said, "Why would they?" Her smile froze. That afternoon, 2 officials from the state arrived. Not loud, not aggressive, polite, professional. They asked Madison to step into a private room. I watched from my bed as the door closed. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. When the door finally opened, Madison's face was pale. Her confidence was gone. She did not look at me. She left without saying goodbye. My dear friend, that silence was louder than any argument we ever had. Later that evening, Lorna came to my room with a folder. She sat down and said words I will never forget. She said, "The investigation confirms financial abuse. The transfers, the forged signature, the false mental health reports, all confirmed." And then she told me something that hurt almost as much as the betrayal. Caleb had been questioned. He admitted everything. He said Madison told him it was temporary. He said he thought I would be fine. He said he needed the money. My son traded my safety for comfort. If it was you, would you forgive that? I did not answer. Because some wounds require time before they even bleed. The state froze my accounts. The house was protected. Madison was removed from all authority. Just like that, the cage door opened. But freedom came with consequences. Madison stopped visiting. No calls. No messages. And then, one evening, the phone rang. Unknown number. When I answered, her voice was shaking. "Mom, please. They're saying I could be charged." I closed my eyes. My dear friend, here is the lesson I need you to hear. Protecting yourself is not cruelty. Telling the truth is not revenge. I told her calmly, "You made your choices." Then I hung up. My dear friend, when people lose power, they do not always walk away quietly. Some panic. Some beg. Some try one last lie. Madison chose all 3. A week after her authority was stripped, she made her final move. Not to apologize, not to make things right, but to save herself. She filed an emergency appeal. She claimed I was being manipulated, that the nursing home staff had turned me against her, that I was confused again. If it was you, would you believe how far a child could go to protect a lie? Because I could not. The appeal forced a hearing. Public. Formal. And that is when everything changed. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was allowed to speak for myself. I sat in a small courtroom wearing a simple blue dress. My hands were steady. My voice was not. Madison sat across from me. She would not meet my eyes. The judge asked me one question. "Mrs. Whitmore, do you understand why you are here today?" I looked straight ahead and said, "Yes, because my daughter tried to steal my life." The room went silent. I told them everything. The forged signature. The lies. The nursing home placement. The money already taken. I spoke slowly. Clearly. No confusion. No fear. Then the state presented the evidence. Bank records. Medical evaluations. Audio recordings. My dear friend, truth has weight. And that weight crushed every lie Madison told. When the judge turned to her and asked if she had anything to add, she cried. But she did not deny it. She said she was under pressure, that she deserved compensation, that I never appreciated her. Let me ask you something painful. If your child said that about you, what would it do to your heart? Because mine did not break. It hardened into something stronger. The judge denied the appeal. Madison was warned of criminal charges. And just like that, her last weapon was taken away. Outside the courtroom, she tried to speak to me. Mom, please. I did not stop. Because sometimes walking away is the loudest answer. But my dear friend, the story does not end there. Because what happened next did not involve punishment. It involved consequences. My dear friend, there is something powerful about truth when it no longer needs protection. Once the hearing ended, the story did not stay quiet. In a small town like Brookvale, secrets do not hide for long. The investigation became public record. The court decision spread, and people started asking questions. Madison had worked at a local real estate office. She was respected there, trusted, known as reliable. Until she was. Clients began canceling. Coworkers whispered. Her manager called her into a meeting. She did not walk out of smiling. When someone betrays their own mother, people start wondering what they might do to anyone else. If it was you, would you still trust her? Caleb did not escape either. Neighbors stopped waving. Friends stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. The house on Maple Ridge Road stayed mine. Protected. Untouched. And for the first time in months, I went home. Walking through that front door felt like breathing again. The smell of old wood. The creak of the stairs. The photos still on the wall. I did not cry, because tears are for endings. And this was a beginning. I hosted a small dinner. Nothing fancy. Just people who had quietly supported me. Lorna came. The nurse who warned me came. A neighbor who had watched my children grow up came. They looked at me with respect, not pity. My dear friend, that mattered more than revenge ever could. Madison tried calling again. I did not answer. Some lessons must echo in silence. And then something unexpected happened. A letter arrived in the mail. From Madison. She wrote that she was sorry. That she was scared. That she felt entitled. That she did not think she would get caught. That last sentence told me everything. Sorry after consequences is not regret. It is fear. If it was you, would you accept that apology? Because I had to decide what kind of ending this story would have. My dear friend, I held that letter in my hands for a long time. I read it once, then again, then a third time. Every word was careful, every sentence measured, not written with love, written with fear. Fear of the law, fear of consequences, fear of losing everything she tried to take from me. Let me ask you something honest. If it was you, would that be enough? Because for me it was. I did not tear the letter. I did not burn it. I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Not for her. For me. So I would never forget the difference between apology and accountability. Caleb came next. He showed up at my door without calling, standing there like a boy again, not the man who sold his silence for money. He cried. He said he was ashamed. He said he made a mistake. He said he needed help. I listened. But listening does not mean erasing. I told him something I want you to hear clearly. Love does not mean access. Forgiveness does not mean control. I told him we could talk. We could heal. But money, decisions, and authority were no longer part of that conversation. He nodded. Some people only understand boundaries when they finally meet one. That night, alone in my home, I made a decision. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. Out of wisdom. I updated my will. Not to punish, but to protect. I set up a trust. Independent oversight. Clear instructions. No one person would ever hold that kind of power over me again. My dear friend, if you are listening right now, please hear this. Do not wait for betrayal to get wise. Protect yourself while love still feels safe. Because strength is not loud. It is prepared. As I signed those final papers, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. But the story still had one final turn. Because sometimes, the greatest victory is not what you take back. It is what you choose to give forward. After everything settled, after the courtrooms emptied and the whispers faded, I sat alone on my porch one quiet evening. The sun was setting over Maple Ridge Road, painting the sky soft orange and gold. The same porch where I once waited for my children to come home from school. The same place I drank coffee after long shifts and told myself, one day I will rest. I finally was. I thought winning meant watching Madison suffer. I thought winning meant seeing regret on her face. I was wrong. Winning meant freedom. I chose not to press charges, not because she deserved mercy, but because I deserved peace. The state had already stripped her power, her reputation, and her illusion of control. That was enough. Caleb and I rebuilt slowly, carefully, on my terms. Some days were good, some days were quiet. Healing is not dramatic, it is patient. Madison moved away. New town, new job, new story. But wherever she went, she carried the truth with her. You cannot outrun what you did. And me. I started volunteering at a local senior center, sitting with women who felt invisible, women who trusted too much, women who were afraid to speak up. I told them my story. I warned them. I asked them the same question I ask you now. If it was you, who really controls your life? I helped them organize documents. I helped them ask questions. I helped them understand that love should never require silence. My dear friend, here is the lesson I want you to take with you. Age is not weakness. Kindness is not stupidity. And trusting someone does not mean surrendering your power. I did not win because I took something back. I won because I stood up. I won because I spoke. I won because I chose myself. And if you are watching this right now, feeling unsure, afraid, or overlooked, let me tell you this. It is not too late. Not to protect yourself. Not to set boundaries. Not to demand respect. Your story is still being written. Now, my dear friend, if this story touched you, please like this video. Subscribe to this channel for more emotional and powerful stories like this. Turn on your notifications so you never miss the next one. And tell me in the comments which part of the country you are watching from. I want to know who is standing with me. Until next time, take care of yourself. Because no one should ever have to lose everything to remember their worth.